Welcome back to Contrast Studio Live. It's your host, Patrick Coyne. I am here with a good friend of mine, client, and elite triathlete, also owner of Fleet Feet, Frank DeJulius. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Pat.
Absolutely. So we know you're a big runner. We know that you own Fleet Feet. What is a background before we get into Contrast on yourself? How'd you get into running? Where'd you grow up? Things like that.
Yeah, sure. I'm from a little further north, in the Akron area, but I'm an Ohio kid. Been an athlete my whole life. I actually played lacrosse in college and high school, and I was a competitive skier as well, and kind of got into the running scene after school. I studied business and entrepreneurship, and it's a quick but funny story. I was working a summer job at a running store during my college years, and I actually really liked it. And I knew at that period of my life that I wanted to be a business owner. I didn't want to work for somebody else. Yeah. And I thought to myself, man, this is pretty cool. Like, I should do this. So anyway, long story short, I learned more about the running industry. I learned more about franchising and the business that I was in. And fast forward a couple years later, I was able to buy my first store, and the rest is history. So,
and your franchise is called Fleet Feet.
Yeah, Fleet Feet, correct. So Fleet Feet's the largest running specialty franchise or business in the country. There's like 300 or so stores across the country. And its special sauce is really that every single one is locally owned by people in the community. And so, yeah, we deliver, world-class retail experiences, but it's really about the service that you get, the one-on-one service that you get when you come into any of our stores.
Okay. So how many locations do you have in Cincinnati? How many runners do you have involved in your community?
Sure. We have 7 locations in Cincinnati. And as a community-based retailer, we offer training programs. It's a huge piece of what we do. And so we will train anybody for whether they want to. Actually, we used to say do your first 5K, but just this spring, in partnership with a local rehab facility, we launched our first 1 mile post hip or knee replacement training program. So these are getting people to be mobile after a pretty big surgery in their life. So really, we will host a training program for anybody from that to someone, say, running their 15th marathon and they want to get faster, or they want to go to the Boston Marathon or something like that. So and even some ultra running things. So we have a really big community of runners in Cincinnati, and we're lucky because Cincinnati actually is an incredible running community, even from a national perspective. And it doesn't really get that credit, but it is. This city is fantastic for running.
So speaking on it being a big running community, obviously your legs get absolutely trashed. It's a big running community, big fitness community, but there's a lack of biohacking and recovery. So what do you think the benefits of hot and cold, or you could say sauna, you could say cold tub, but even just for perspective of training, you could say hot tub and cold shower.
Right.
What are the benefits to an everyday runner, say 50 years old, wants to run a few miles on the weekend? How do you think hot and cold therapy could add value to that customer's life?
It's crazy, man. As an athlete, a lifelong athlete, I remember literally decades ago having a coach tell me he's like, hey, what I want you to do after your long run is to get in the shower, turn it up really, really hot for a few seconds, and then you're going to turn it really, really cold for a few seconds. And I was like, okay, that's weird. He's like, do that like 6 times and then get out. And at the time, I was like, college kid. I was like, okay, I'll do that. So it's funny now that it's becoming more popular, and obviously there's science behind it. But the benefits, I guess backing up from me, for athletes and for people, I think it's a recovery game. As you get older, as you age in life, the faster you could recover from your workout, the closer you are to being able to do another workout at full fitness. And the person that's able to do that over and over again the quickest is the person that's going to get fittest the quickest and be the best.
It's the name of the game.
It's the name of the game. How fast can you recover? And I think when you're young, you sometimes take that for granted. You don't have to, it's easy to recover. Yeah. You just fall asleep or whatever. But as you get older, you need to work on recovery. It's funny, at Fleet Feet, we have entire walls in our stores dedicated to recovery tools, body maintenance tools. And so the benefit to Contrast, to me, obviously the science is there, but first of all, it feels good after a workout, man. It just, you reduce the core body temperature if you start with cold.
Yep.
And so is it a little tough getting in immediately? Sure. But man, it feels good. There's all sorts of science that talks about the reduction in inflammation.
Yep.
inflammation is like the biggest thing that you're trying to fight as an everyday person or as an athlete. And then immediately you're going into warm or hot, which obviously increases blood flow. So you're getting this like pumping effect. So I'm not like a medical authority on it, but that the difference between the way that the blood is being restricted and then opened up, it opens up all of the muscles to move the inflammation out. So I mean that ability to recover as quick as you're able to do it, because it only takes a couple minutes to go through that process. To me, that's the benefit. It's not an hour-long massage. It's not a 15-20 minute foam rolling session. It's a quick process.
30 minutes in and out.
Works really, really well. Yeah.
So we know the physical stress that the body can take, and as a high-functioning business owner, a dad, a husband, an athlete in itself, then you have to work out with me too. There's all these external stresses in your life. So yes, physical, cortisol levels, muscle soreness, fatigue, lactic acid, all those things. That's great. Personally, the reason I do it, I had previously and still do struggle with some mental health issues. For me, it's the mental aspect of it, the focus before a run, things like that. So how do you think that especially the extreme cold, sauna, it's not as hard. I'm going to be honest with you. Sitting in a sauna feels good. You leave, you're elated, but that cold water, it's a mother you know what.
Yep.
And my big thing is how do you think that cold can help a mental focus? Because doing in the cold tub before you work out actually helps muscle gain. Yep. You can do it post-workout, but how do you think that could increase your focus and almost pre-race tenacity?
Yeah, I mean, as an athlete, you say we do hard things every day. And every day, it's not easy to get into that tub, to get neck deep into a tub that's just above freezing. So to me, it is really, really important that you get into a mental space that's appropriate before you get into that cold tub. I believe in dedicated space and dedicated time, and this is something that you can't do just anywhere. You have to walk into the room where the cold tub is. You have to put your mind in that place, and you're not going anywhere. Your mind and your body have to be in sync to get into that cold water, to endure just the physical sensation that it brings. And it's because of the nature of it, it's very hard to be somewhere else mentally. You are very, very present in that moment because it's an intense sensation.
And just like owning a business or being on a 100-mile run, when everything does come down and it's weighing on your shoulders, you're the only one that can make that decision. Yeah. So do you think that it's also helped your ability to make really hard decisions?
Yeah, because, look, I know how beneficial it is, but there are days that I don't want to get in, and I don't want to show up to the gym, or I'm like, man, I got to do another run. I mean, when I leave here, I got 2.5 hours of training that I'd rather go get lunch with you.
Absolutely.
But so I just think that this is another thing in my life that causes or requires focus, and I like that. I like making myself do hard things every day because I know I benefit from them, and it's once I get in, it's relaxing. I'm happy I did it. It's rewarding, and that means I want to do it again tomorrow and the next day. I'll
quote Sam, but he had a great on our last podcast. He was talking about how if you start your day with the hardest thing, everything behind that gets easier and easier. And I think that hits the nail on the head.
Yeah, we call it eating the frog. I don't think we made that up, but it's like do the hardest thing every day in the beginning of the day.
But you also have a quote that you wore a shirt into the gym that was amazing. You say the first mile sucks. The first minute in the cold tub sucks. And I think wrapping your head around after the first minute, 30 seconds, first mile, it does subside and you end up seeing those benefits. Yeah. So speaking on benefits and myths, there's so many myths that are around overtraining, overeating, overrunning, lifting too many weights. There's a lot of stigma behind contrast therapy. Is it a placebo effect? Is it snake oil like everyone says? Do you think there's any myths in the running community about hot and cold? Is it going to make you slower because your muscles get denser? Is there any myths or things that are thrown around in the running community that we think we could solve here?
I don't know, too many of the myths. I mean, I hear what you're saying there. I do know, if we're getting a little nerdy, core body temperature is a big thing. I've stood at the start line of a lot of races where I'm standing there and I'm too hot. And I've also stood on the start races where I have cold vests on, things that keep my core body temperature cold. I know this is a recovery tool, but I think there's probably some myths around, getting your body too cold, or you can maybe get stiff, your muscles tighten up. But I've never personally experienced anything like that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it throws you in a state of either adapt, run, or overcome. And I think that the cold water is a lot like life, a lot like running, is you can either lean into the run and finish it, or you can absolutely just quit.
Yeah.
And I think there's a beautiful thing is you're getting benefits from this, pardon my French, but from sitting on your butt.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing anything besides going internal. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to run a bunch of miles. You don't have to lift a bunch of weight to get the same amount of benefits of inducing that stress.
You know what's interesting, you make me think when you say that, is as many people as I've seen get into a cold tub from a fight or flight perspective, what you're talking about, I've never seen anybody like get in and like jump out because they couldn't handle the cold. Like, oh my, you know, like if you were to jump into a fire or something.
Yeah.
Like so people fight it. Like they get in and there's something about the sensation where maybe for a split second it's uncomfortable, but actually instead of people jumping out, what I see them do is sink into it.
Yep.
They go from here to like down to their neck. Like, okay, I'm taking this on. I'm going to be present. I'm going to take this thing on. I'm going to sit here for as long as I need to because I know the benefits. And I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying.
I think inherently we have a primal trait in all of us that we want to run towards hard things.
Right.
And you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to get under a 700-pound squat bar to get into that primal state of mind of choosing to get through or run away. Yeah. So speaking about that, when we get onto this of the everyday runner, recreational runners like I am. I've never competed in a race other than grade school track. I would get blown away by you in a mile and 2 or 3 miles. The everyday runner like me. Yeah. I love to lift weights, don't really like to run, but I see the benefits. What do you think the benefits of contrast therapy could be for me as just an everyday runner? Or say my mom who's 60 years old who wants to go out for a run and her knees and her elbows are sore. Yeah. Everyone doesn't want to get into cold water, but I think the benefits outweigh the negatives. What do you think some of those benefits could be for your average client at Fleet Feet?
Yeah, the biggest thing is like I was saying before we started rolling, like it helps people to treat themselves and think of themselves as an athlete. Even if the rest, the 23 and a half hours of the rest of their day, they don't view themselves as an athlete, even though they likely do athletic things throughout the day. This is just one more opportunity where they get to say, I'm going to treat myself like an athlete. I'm going to recover properly so that when I go out to do my next run or when I go out to jog around the block, I'm more comfortable. I don't have to worry about being so sore the next day or my ankle kind of creaking or my knees hurt. Contrast is going to give you the ability to feel better day after day, because the biggest thing we see at Fleet Feet is that we will get runners going. We will motivate them. We'll give them, it's incredible what a new pair of shoes will do in terms of motivation. They go out in their first run. It's great. The second run's great. Third run, they're like, man, everything hurts. Yep. What do you have to help me hurt less? Because I want to keep doing this, but like it hurts. So 10 years ago, I'd sell them a foam roller. Last year I'd sell them a gun.
Theragun, yeah.
Now it's contrast.
Selling them contrast.
Get in the pool, get in the cold tub, get in the sauna, get your body, prepare your body for the demands you're putting on it, because I hate to break it to you, you're doing athletic things. You need to treat yourself like an athlete. And it's incredible the mental side too, like you were saying, all of a sudden you're thinking yourself as an athlete. Maybe you're going to make smarter choices on what you eat. Maybe you're going to go to bed a half hour early. Maybe you're going to have 1 or 2 less drinks if that's your thing. Like all of a sudden your entire life becomes better because you're treating yourself like an athlete, even though you may not be, or you don't think you're an athlete.
It's an incredible thought process. Like whether it's Fleet Feet or Black Sheep or Contrast, people want to train like a professional athlete because they're most optimal, right, on the human scale. A 6'8" human being, 300 something pounds, can run under 5 seconds. It's incredible. But there's also certain things that athlete does that we have access to as humans. And I think, taking your quote, you'll see it in my business plan now, is everyone should be training like an athlete. You should be treating yourself like an athlete as well, especially on the recovery side.
Yeah, I mean, professional athletes, they're aspirational. I think that's why we love watching the Super Bowl. That's why we love watching the best of the best do it. That's why I like coming to the gym. You see these guys that are at the top end of their particular sport. It's aspirational, but there are things that we all could do, normal people in our everyday lives, that are the same things that what these people are doing. And I think that's a pretty cool thing that contrast brings.
So wrapping up, do you have any inspiring stories from your own experience or hearing from someone's experience what extreme cold water, extreme heat has done for their life? Do you have any?
Well, I think I'm kind of proud of this. I don't know if it's inspiring, but 4 years ago, my family moved into a new house in Montgomery, and as you mentioned, I'm a runner. I run every day for the most part, all year long. And there's a stream, a pretty good stream behind my house, and I was out on a run. This is like when we first moved in, so I was kind of just like learning the roads around my house and stuff. And it was the winter time, and I was like, man, one of these runs, I'm gonna end my run and go into the water, because it was like waist deep water. And like, so I'm trying to convince myself to do this because I knew how hard it would be, especially in the middle of winter, and you get done running, blah blah. Anyway, long story short, there was a day where it was like one of those great days in Cincinnati where it was really cold. It was kind of like flurries out. It was pretty in the woods. I think I ran for like an hour, and I was like, you know what I'm doing? Of course there's no one around. So I like get down to my shorts. And I just sat down in that river, and it was just for me, it was an aha moment of like, I was in nature. Everything. I'm feeling good about myself. I just did a hard run. Obviously, a very intense sensation being in this just above freezing cold water by myself, and probably like dirty water, but it felt great, And that for me was like, I need this more in my life. Am I gonna walk into a public park river half naked every day? Probably not. So when you told me about what you're doing here at Contrast, it's like, okay, this is cool, because I could get the benefits of what I had that morning when I convinced myself to sit in a freezing creek. And here we are, able to do it in a professional setting. So
I think the business is going to be great for people. And I think that fitness, and sometimes especially the biohacking and recovery sense, is extremely behind in Cincinnati. And what I think people can get behind, like what you're saying, is yes, it is hard. Yes, it is taxing. But how you felt, you remember how you felt. Like, you always remember how people make you feel, right? You remember how that cold water made you feel, the amount of dopamine you had, the amount of adrenaline response you get. You feel like you could take on the entire world. And the beautiful thing about this business is you can do it every single day. So I thank you for your time, Frank. I appreciate you, brother. Keep kicking ass.
Likewise, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.